Hello React Native developers, what is going on? William here for a new video. If you are following this channel, you know that lately I've been looking at examples of apps on my phone and see how some of the cool effects and animations they are implementing can be done in React Native. And today I would like to look at the Revolut app. I installed Revolut last month, and when you open the app, they greet you with a beautiful graph that shows you how the amount of money you have on your account is evolving over time. And you can slide this little cursor across the graph and see, how much money you have for which date. And you have a beautiful gradient below the line. So overall, it does add a great feel to the app. The Revolut app is super well designed. Clearly, they're spending a lot of efforts to provide a really great user experience. And I really love this. And also you have these beautiful curves moving between, different values. It's just a very, very nice chart. So I was wondering, can it be done in React Native? It does look pretty innocent, but actually I think there's a lot of stuff going on, right? If we think about it. So we have the line, and so we do have like some nice curves moving between discrete values, and we have the gradient below the line, and then we can slide this little cursor here and go from, so you see the line is completely continuous, and yet the values, how much money do I have on my account, is always a discrete value. So you need to be able to go back from a continuous value to a discrete value. And the sliding needs to be super smooth, of course. So how would we do this in React Native? So first of all, we need to draw the line. And for this, we could do it manually, but I think it makes more sense to use D3. D3 is going to give us a lot of stuff for free. So if you were to do this manually, you would need to scale the values. So here we have dates, and we would need to scale the dates value to the width of the screen, and then the amount of money to the height, so to the height of the chart. And this is something that D3 is going to provide for us for free. And then we would need to do these curves moving between values, which can be done manually. I looked at a couple of tutorials online. There's actually a lot of great resources if you want to do this manually. Also, if you're interested in like how these things are done, but we're going to use D3 also because it's going to be much easier to do it with D3. And then another thing that D3 is going to give us for free is going back from continuous value to a discrete value. So you see here I'm in between two values on the graph, but yet the label says 200 francs. It doesn't say 168 francs. And so also this is something we're going to get for free with D3. And so we can draw the path using D3. Then we need to do the gradient. So what we're going to do is duplicate this line, and if this chart is contained in a rectangle, we need to so we duplicate the line, the path of the line, and we're gonna close it basically. So we're gonna add the right corner of the rectangle and the bottom corner of the rectangle to the path and fill it with a gradient. So that should give us this beautiful blue line with the gradient below. Then we need to slide this little cursor on the line. So for the sliding gestures, we are going to use the good old transparent scroll view on top of the chart. You know it, you love it, and I love it. And we're going to listen to the animation values on this scroll view, on this transparent scroll view. And then, so in order actually to achieve this, we need two things. We need first the length of the line, which is obviously a bit wider than the width of the screen. So if we want to be able to scroll from one end to the other, we need to know the exact length of the line. And then if we listen to the scroll values for the scroll view, for any point in the scrolling, we need to be able to get the X and Y on the line so we can display the cursor at the right position. And so it always follows the line perfectly. To do this, there is actually a JavaScript library that can provide us these properties. It's called SVG path properties. And it will give us the total length of the line, which we absolutely need. And then we can get the X and Y value for any point in the scrolling. So we're going to use this. And so once we know the X and Y value, we're going to use set native props from React Native in order to be able to move the cursor without triggering any rendering on the React side. So it's going to be super smooth, 60 FPS. And I know it's going to be super smooth because I use this technique in another project. Maybe I can actually show you quickly. And it's in React Native sketch elements. So we have a little crop editor here. And you see here super smooth animations, and the way each dot is moving is based on using set native props. So I know that if we use this technique, it should be super smooth and fast. So on and on, nothing like really too complicated, but a lot of small things that need to fit together and that add up. So can it be done in React Native? Let's have a look. Before we get started, I would like to mention React Native Elements. React Native Elements is a premium starter kit for React Native. It contains everything you need when starting a new React Native project. And this is the starter kit that I use for every single of my new React Native projects. And I always keep it up to date with the latest version of Expo, using the latest React APIs and best practices. It contains everything you need to get started quickly in a new project: static typings, ESLint rules, navigation structure, and a lot of UI components. And we have multiple categories. You can check it out at react-native.shop/elements. And you can try it out on iOS and Android. See if it's a good fit for your next React Native projects. And also, feel free to send me any feedback on this project. So I hope you check it out. Okay, let's get started. This might take a while, right? Nothing really hard in itself, but a lot of small pieces, and I might struggle at many points along the way, but please bear with me. Hopefully it should be fine. So here I have an app which I created using React Native Create app. And the first thing I'm going to do is to set up some basic structure for the chart. So we're going to need safe area view for the notch on iPhone. And we're going to put, so since we know that we need to overlay a chart and the scroll view together, we're going to create a container for that. So I'm going to create root style and apply a flex 1, and then I need to create a container style. And we know that this will contain the chart done in SVG. And I'm going to import it from the Expo module. And we're going to set some dimensions for the chart. So the height, I'm going to set 200 for the height of the chart. Maybe we change it later. Maybe it's too it's not wide enough, I don't know. Let's see, and the width is the width of the screen. So I can add it to the container style. Can also add it to the SVG style. You could do this, so here we're using Expo. You could do it using the art module, which is shipped natively with React Native. But there is a bug on Android that you need to be aware about. So you need, if you're using the art module instead of SVG, you need to listen to the app state changes to redraw the surface on Android when the app state change. And you should use Expo anyways. If you ask me the two most important things about a new React Native project, I will tell you that static typings would be the first one, or the second one, I don't know, and the second one would be using Expo. And I think that on the topic of static typing, there is a really strong consensus that they're extremely useful in React Native projects. For Expo, the consensus doesn't seem to be that strong, which to me is really surprising. I think actually it kind of makes sense because Expo is a much more recent technology. So people, might have tried it like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and have a vision for what it is, but it's not really what it is today. And it's a much less mature technology in compared to, let's say, TypeScript. So that might be why, if you look at Reddit or, Twitter, people don't seem to embrace Expo as much as they're embracing technologies like TypeScript and Flow. But anyways, you should use Expo. There are plenty of great literature on Medium you can find on why this is really a must-have library for React Native projects. And here we're using it. So maybe I'm gonna add some margin also to the graph. And in our SVG, we're gonna add a path, which is gonna be the line of the graph. Okay, so now we need to actually create the line variable using d3. So if I Google for React Native d3, this result here. Great tutorial written by David Vaca about, having like these beautiful animated graphs in d3 in React Native. And I think I can go in its source code to do some copy and paste on how to use d3 in a React Native project. So you have the spline.js file. And you see here I have some imports for d3, importing the scale functions, which we're gonna need. So this is perfect. I can just cut and paste. Probably don't need everything, but we'll see. And then here you have the code to build the line. So here we don't use area, but line. The X function. Oh, so you see the data is below. So I'm gonna just change this here. So for X, we return the X property from the data item, but we need to scale it, right? Here X goes from 1st of September to the 5th of October, but we need to go, of course, from, this is the X, so we go from 0 to the width of the screen. So we're gonna need a scale function to do this, which we're gonna create later, and we're gonna use scale time in order to do this. So scale X, and then for Y, So again, we return the amount of money which goes from 0 to 300 and which we need to scale. So we scale 0 to 300 from the height of the screen of the height of the chart to 0. So scale y. So now we need to create these two functions. So for scale s, we're going to use scale time. The domain goes from 1st of September to 5th of October. And the range goes from 0 to the width of the screen. And now we can create the scale y function. So here we use scale linear. We go from 0 to 300 and the range goes from, so at 0, since remember the axis for the SVG, right? So x goes from the top left, from left to right, and y goes from top to bottom. So we go from, if we're at 0, we go from height. So yeah, y is going to be height, and if we're at 300, we want the y to be 0. I think that's correct. Should be correct. And then data, we pass data. And for the curving, which is, like the line smoothing between points in the graph, I'm not sure what we can use. Let me try to find some example. Curve interpolation, maybe. Okay. So here you have, you can like visualize some of the curve interpolation functions, and we're going to use, I think, curve basis, which is going to give us a result very close to, I think, to what we have in the Revolut app. So here we have the line, and I forgot to import path from SVG. Okay, these guys are not used. Okay. Can remove these guys here as well. Just doing some cleanup. And so you see here, we have this strange shape. So I'm gonna do a fill equals transparent, and we're gonna add a stroke of color red. Okay, so here we have our graph. It actually looks very good, goes from 0, 200, 300. Nice curve smoothing, exactly like in the Revolut app. I'm gonna add some stroke width of, I'm not sure, 5 maybe. Alright, looks good. So you see at the bottom and at the top, because of the stroke width, the line is cut. So we're going to add some padding to the graph. So let's call it vertical padding of 5. And so here it's 8 minus vertical padding to vertical padding. Beautiful. And here I have a screenshot of the Revolut app, so I can color pick. Okay, so we have some blue here. Now we need to do the gradient fill. So we're going to create a second path. And let's say we do red, no stroke. And for the path, we're going to use line. And then we need to concatenate two lines to this path. So we have this path here. We need to concatenate this one here and this one here. And finally, we can use a gradient fill to get exactly the same result. So I'm going to use line 2. So we need to go from here, X is screen width and Y is 0. So from width to 0. No, I mean, this is where we start, sorry. So we go from width and Y is 8. So X is width and Y is 8. And then, so we are here now, and we go to X equals 0 and Y equals 8. Let's have a look. Looks great. And now for the fill, we're going to use a gradient. So URL gradient. I think I have a sketch here with I already made a gradient that kind of looks like the one in Revolut, and I can use copy SVG code. And then there's this great website which I use to do SVG React. It's this one, where you can paste SVG code and you get React Native code. So here I paste the result from Sketch. You can select the global React Native options, and boom, I just have to cut and paste. My gradient is ready. It's just perfect. So I can go back here, paste it here, up. I need to import defs, linear gradient and stop. And I need to call it gradient because I called it gradient here. Let's have a look. Really good. One thing here is that I think I'm gonna add a third stop, because I feel that here the blue color is a bit more stronger than on this one. So I'm gonna add a new stop at 80%, and let me pick some color. Okay, let's try. Yeah, it's a bit stronger, I like it. So now we have our graph. Next step is gonna be to move a cursor that you can slide along the graph. So let's create a view and apply a style called cursor. So what kind of dimensions? Maybe 20 pixel width and height, which means the border radius should be 10. Border color should be same color. And for the stroke of the graph, and border width should be 4 maybe, and background color white. Okay, so we see it here. It seems to be a bit too thick. Maybe 3 should be better. Looks better. So now we need inner container to add the famous scroll view, which we're gonna use to drive the animation of the sliding. So I'm gonna import the animated module. And we're gonna add an animated.scroll view. We position it on top of the graph. So you see the graph and the scroll view are children of container, which is exactly the same size of the graph. So I can use style sheet absolute fill to position it on top of it. And then we need to be able to slide exactly from the beginning of the graph to the end. So we need the width of the scroll view to be twice, not twice the width of the screen, but twice the length of the graph, because the length of the graph is higher than the width of the screen. And if we want to be able to precisely go from one end to the other, it needs to be twice the length of the screen. Content, container style, width equals line, should be line length times 2. And line length, we are gonna compute using this great module here, which I need to import. And we can create, so here we have a path, and we can create a properties variable which takes the path as an input. So line, and we can get line length. Okay. Then we need to add the on-scroll property to listen to on-scroll events. I always forget the syntax for the on-scroll property, but since we used it in last week's video, I know that I can just cut and paste from the snack from last week. So we have here the on-scroll attribute, and there's a couple here of other attributes which I need. I need the show scroll horizontal scroll indicator to be false, scroll event throttle 16, which is the recommended value when you have an animated event for on-scroll. Bounces should be false. So I'm gonna just copy paste these guys here. Perfect. And these two guys here. So I need to create the X value in the state. All right. So now we need to listen to the animated value and slide the cursor using set native props when the animated value changes. So in order to use set native props, I need to have the reference of the cursor. So I'm going to use a reference here, this cursor, and I'm going to use create ref from React. So cursor equals React create ref. So one component did mount. We're gonna add an event listener on the X. And move cursor depending on the scrolling value. And of course, even if we didn't scroll, we want to initialize the cursor at the right position. So we will use move cursor 0, which is the initial position. And now I can create the move cursor method. Okay. So now we have the scrolling value, and we need to find the point where we are on the graph depending on the scrolling value. And we know that from this module we can get X and Y value for any scrolling values. So we can use this method. Properties, and then we can use the ref, so cursor dot current, because we use React create ref, set native props with top is X and left is Y. Let's see how it looks. I have a syntax error here. Oh, missing some parentheses. Oh, can I close this guy? Okay. Okay. Is that add listener maybe? Okay. So we see here the initial value is wrong. So we need to refine that probably. And if I slide from, okay, this is completely wrong. So top should be Y and left should be X. Okay. Okay, so looks pretty close, but so first of all, the scrolling is inversed, which makes sense. It's always the same, right? So if you want to slide from left to right, the scrolling will go from right to left. So we need to inverse that. We had the same situation last week, and then we go from the start, but then we seem to go outside the bound of the graph. So you see I don't know, somehow the cursor gets lost. So at 0, we should be the length. At 0, the length should be the total length, so it should be line length minus value. So it doesn't look too bad, but so first of all, the cursor is not centered on the line, which I think we can do if we remove. So if we use here the cursor radius, so I'm going to factorize it in a variable. So here it's cursor radius times 2. Okay. Can put it here. And we need to remove the cursor radius also. Okay. So you see it goes perfectly from end to end, and it's perfectly centered every time on the line. And it's pretty smooth. So the last step now will be to do the label. So we're going to create a view, which we're going to horizontally translate based on the scroll animation value. And then we're going to use set native driver to update the text value of the label. So let's create a view. Can put it here. So animated view and then we're not going to put a text element, but we're going to use a text input, and the reason is we want to be able to update the text value using set native props, which we cannot do with the text component because the text value is a children, so we cannot use set native props. But if we use text input, we can update the value using set native props, which is what we're gonna do. Okay, put a text input here. And we need to create some style. Maybe with 100. Position. Absolute. Top 0, left 0. Okay, and maybe I'm gonna put it a bit higher, so minus 45. Okay, perfect. Now we're gonna need to slide this view along with the cursor. So we're gonna use translate X interpolate. So we go from 0 to line length. When we're at 0, we translate to width minus the label width, which I need to factorize here. Okay. And when we scroll to line length, we are at 0. So let's have a look. Oops. Input range. And I need to add this transform to the label, so I can do it here. Transform. So it looks pretty good. Now, since we scroll more than line length, in order for the label to not go outside the view, we can add an extrapolate clamp. So meaning we won't be able to translate more or less than 0 actually. So I can do extrapolate clamp. Perfect. And now we need to add the text value. So we need to add a ref here. So we can use set native props. We're going to use create ref. So label equals. Okay. And when the cursor moves, so we have the Y value. Now we need to know, like we have this scale function which goes from 0 to 300 to height, from height to 0 minus vertical padding. So now we have Y, we want to go back to the amount. So we need to use the inverse function of scale Y. And there is a method in diff called invert that we can use for that. So we can do label equals scale Y invert, and we give it the Y value, and then we can simply set the value to the label. So label set native props. Again, we use set native props in order to update the animation without triggering any re-rendering on the React side. So text equals label. So let's have a look. Oops, I forgot to use .current because I'm using React create ref. My iPhone just crashed. Okay. Oops. Oh boy, that's not good. Let me just try to log the label value. Could that be? Or is it because I need to pass a string maybe? Okay. So we are pretty close, but you see, I mean, in MyGraph and in the Revolut app, you only have discrete values, right? You only have 0, 200, 300. But here, I have continuous value. So now I need to use another scale to convert these continuous values into discrete values. And I'm going to call it scale label. And I think I can Google d3 scale continue scale discrete value. Hopefully so scale with so I have a continuous input and I want discrete output. Perfect. So I can use this one here. So scale label. The domain is 0, 300, and the range goes, so it's either 0 or 200 or 300, which is all the discrete values we have here, basically. And you see I have 300, 200, 0. Pretty cool, no? I mean, I think now we are really close to Of course, we could style the label a little bit more, but we are very, very close to what is done in the Revolut app. What do you guys think? I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for bearing with me. And it took a little bit of time. So if you're still watching up to this point, thank you very much. If you have examples of cool animations and effects where you would like to, that you've seen from apps you're using and you are wondering, can this be done in React Native? Feel free to reach out to me and I would be happy to implement them on the channel. And in the meantime, happy hacking. Let me know what you think. Feel free to ask any questions and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.